Chapter 3. Be on your guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be men of courage. Be strong. Do everything in love. 1 Corinthians 16:13. A heavy swell dramatically lifts the bow of the Alcyon, then races madly toward the stern. The windship's keel slams back down into the raging water, creating a body-shocking shudder that runs the entire length of the 100-foot hull. Near gale force winds whip the surface water into frothy waves that beat against the bridge. From inside, I can barely see through the plate glass windows. Thick rivulets of cascading seawater and heavy rain threatens to overwhelm the window's high-speed wipers. Sitting in the captain's chair, I'm quite pleased not to be at sea. Amazingly, the Alcyon is taking this beating while tied alongside a pier in Port Lincoln, South Australia, and I am getting seasick in port. Most of my friends are astonished that I, a sailor for over 20 years, get seasick. I also find it rather bizarre. It certainly isn't something I enjoy, yet I love being a diver. It is one of the prices I must pay. But in return, I have gotten to travel the oceans and to dive in some of the best underwater locations in the world. I just never expected to get seasick while still tied up in the harbor. Fortunately, I'm not alone. Standing next to me is Christoph. He is on the verge of losing his lunch. Only an Australian would build a pier in such an exposed place, rages the captain. We are taking turns adjusting the Alcyon's unique turbo sails. These strange looking metal sails are keeping the windship from bashing against the pier. The graceful research vessel strains against the thick ropes that hold it safely in place. A 10-foot gap separates the plunging hull from the steel and cement pier, which would severely damage the Alcyon, and we would sink if we slammed against it. I'm going below to my bunk, says Christoph, who is looking very pale. Stepping down into the radio room, he doesn't get very far. An instant later, he charges back up and out through the bridge door, throwing himself violently against the side railing. Over the tempest sounds of the raging storm, I hear Christoph choking and gurgling. A minute later, he staggers unhappily back into the pilot house. He is soaking wet from the pounding rain. The captain attempts a feeble grin, then abruptly he loses it again. Only this time he uses a trash can. The can I had placed beside me, just in case of an unexpected barf emergency of my own. An instant later I am rushing outside, only I don't quite make it to the railing. Miserably between gut-wrenching spasms, I stare at the wildly windship's wildly plunging deck, finally wiping spittle from my chin on Capkin's wetsuit, which is conveniently hanging close by. I go back inside, closing the watertight door behind me. The following morning, there is absolutely no sign of the storm. Outside, the sky is deep blue with a few white puffy clouds hugging the horizon. It is very chilly, so I'm wearing a thick coat since we are in the midst of the Australian winter. It is early July, not the best month for going out in the Great Australian Bight. The rest of the crew and I are busily loading one last box before getting underway. What it contains is almost as strange as the recent tempest at Seaport. So, what's in the box? Capkin's curiosity is getting the best of him. The wooden container is a mystery to the inquisitive divers. Something fishy, I replied, playfully dodging the answer. That's not much of a hint, complains Anton. You're always up to something fishy. Okay, I grin. Cindy helped to make it, and Captain will be the first to want to play with it. Captain glares at me. He is at the end of his patience. Tell me what it is, or I'll never make you another peanut butter sandwich again. I instantly give in. It's a giant, toy, great white shark. Right. Anton doesn't believe me. So open the box. I reply, shrugging my shoulders. 10 minutes later, the lid of the long box lies on the deck. The crew stares in awe at a 12-foot long mechanical great white shark. Jean Michel wants to see how real great whites will react to Allison, I say while stroking the rubbery latex skin, which looks and feels very realistic. Allison could answer some questions about whether great white sharks are territorial and how they might react to a strange shark. We drop anchor at a nearby beach to give Allison a swim test. Jean Michel wants to check the mechanical shark buoyancy and swimming ability before putting it into the water with the real sharks. While we are suiting up in our dive gear, Capkin sniffs suspiciously at his wetsuit. Smells like someone barfed on my sleeve, he states flatly, looking for the culprit. It was Steve. The captain gives me up instantly. You barfed on my wetsuit? Capkin is rapidly stripping off the offended rubber suit. I only wiped my chin. I didn't barf on it, I answer in my defense. Besides, I owe you one for the block of cheese you left rotting in my dive bag last expedition. That was an accident. Capkin is vigorously plunging the wetsuit into a barrel of water. Putting a block of cheese in my dive bag was an accident? I asked, not buying it. I thought it was my dive bag. Capkin sniff checks the suit, then begins putting it on. I was just packing a snack. His answer makes sense. Capkin is always hiding food. Sorry about your wetsuit, I offer lamely as I prepare to jump over the side to survey the bottom. That's okay, leers Capkin. Now I owe you one. Several minutes later, the other divers and Allison join me on the sandy bottom. There is a slight beach surge stirring up the bottom, sand and sediment. The back and forth movement of the water is creating very gloomy conditions. In the dim, watery light, the mechanical shark looks surprisingly realistic. Its mouth is half open, revealing twin rows of thumb-sized plastic teeth. Allison's eyes exactly capture the lifeless stare of a great white shark. She moves slowly through the water, her tail sweeping from side to side, propelled by low-pressure air acting against a movable ram inside the shark's body. The air, piped through an umbilical cord, also maneuvers her pectoral fins for up and down mobility. The controls are designed to be operated by a diver inside a steel shark cage. At the moment, Capkin is manipulating Allison's movements. I'm standing on the sand bottom taking pictures of the whole operation when the ballistic arrival of a fur seal pup momentarily captures my attention. Happily watching the playful sea mammal spinning about, I'm a perfect target for Capkin, who seizes the opportunity for revenge. In the dismal water, the mechanical shark's tail begins to move with fiendish purpose. Looking through my underwater camera's viewfinder, I follow the antics of the fur seal. Abruptly, the pup stares over my shoulder in alarm. Then he dashes off, leaving a wake of frothy bubbles. A sudden impact knocks me off balance. I feel something sharp digging hard into my side. Thinking it is one of the other divers, I quickly look to my left and practically leap right out of my wetsuit. A great white shark, its mouth half open, looms before my dive mask. A fright-filled moment slowly passes before I realize it is only Allison. Trying to get my heartbeat back to normal, I look over at the culprit. I can tell that Capkin is giggling by the large cascade of bubbles floating buoyantly out of his regulator. That night we re-anchor at Dangerous Reef and begin chumming to attract the sharks. Early the next morning, we launch Allison for real. Murph, the bashful great white, is at the stern and seems to be the perfect candidate for an Allison encounter. It is surprising and disappointing when Murph snubs Allison. He could care less about our mechanical shark. Other great whites arrive and still nothing happens. That's when Jean Michel decides to see how the great whites would react to an apparently injured shark. A small amount of fish blood is pumped into Allison via a plastic hose. The reaction is immediate and comes without warning. Peaches arrives mouth first. She is an 18-foot long shark with a bite first, ask questions later attitude. The massive predator hits Allison broadside, right in the gills. For a shark, a gill hit is equivalent to going for the throat. Fish breath through their gills. There is a mighty loud crunch sound as the thick lexicon plastic bars of Allison's internal frame instantly become rubble. Confused, Peaches withdraws, spitting out pieces of shredded latex and splintered plastic. Her thought process apparently has only one answer when in doubt. She bites again. It's a really big bite, something that only a great white shark can do with real authority. At this point, it should be noted that great white sharks are not malicious killers. They serve a very important purpose in life. By calling out the weak and the sick, they actually help to keep other marine life healthy. Scavenging the ocean, they also eat dead and decaying animals, which reduces the potential for disease to other marine animals. Great whites mostly seem to act instinctively. They prefer eating things they know and have encountered in the past. When confronted by human beings, they usually, but not always, leave us alone. The fish blood leaking from Allison fits the great white's profile that this should be lunch. So she takes 3 more monstrous bites out of the mechanical shark, each time spitting out large quantities of unappetizing lexicon and pieces of latex. Peaches just doesn't seem to realize that there's nothing worth eating here. For me, the most important aspect of this experiment is that the shark is easily biting through lexicon bars that are a full quarter of an inch thick. Please let me put this in perspective. For the last 18 months, I've been hanging off the Alcyon stern inside a clear lexicon cylinder, the world's first all-plastic shark cage, to see how great white sharks would react to an apparently cageless diver. The cylinder is made out of 3/16 of an inch of lexicon, which is 25% thinner than what Peaches is crunching on now. Watching in semi-shock, I realize that I may have been playing at being an easily opened lunchbox. Peaches departs after opening up Allison like an electric can opener. We pull the remaining parts of the mechanical shark back on deck. The thick, bulletproof lexicon looks like a heap of plastic debris. Jean Michel examines the shattered lexicon bars, then looks in my direction. Well, Steve, I guess this adds a certain dimension of excitement to your going into the plastic cylinder. Still feel comfortable about doing it? It almost surprises me when I automatically answer, yeah, I do. Jean Michel nods. I agree. The plastic cage is safe. Our decisions are based on a simple fact. Allison was not meant to withstand the attack of a great white shark. Her construction was designed for mobility, not strength. The latex skin, which gave Allison her realistic look, also provided for a purchasing point for Peaches to anchor her massive teeth. My Lexan cage, however, was built to stand up to a serious shark attack. Though constructed of lighter plastic, the cage's cylinder design greatly increases its strength. Jean Michel knows the plastic cage was soundly constructed. Otherwise, he would have never asked me to jump into it. Unfortunately, sometimes friends encourage us to take foolish risks in the interest of proving ourselves. Often these childish dares are disguised as excuses for adventure. On the Cousteau expeditions, we often faced serious challenges, yet our adventures were always approached as calculated risks. Knowing the potential dangers, we would first take serious steps to minimize our exposure. Hazardous diving operations call for well thought out plans and alternative courses of action for unexpected situations. God has given each of us a dynamic body that can be developed into a real adventure machine. He has also given us a highly developed brain for serious inquiry, to achieve our potential, and maybe even to ensure our own well-being. We should continuously exercise our ability to think for ourselves. We can never assume that someone else always has our best interests in mind, particularly when they are encouraging us to do something dangerous or potentially foolish. To be blind is bad, but worse is to have eyes and not to see. Helen Keller. As I write these thoughts, I again glance down at the newspaper on my desk. On the second page, there is an article about a silly young man. A cartoon on television had given him a novel idea. Last night, he laid down on the middle white line of a busy highway. Not surprisingly, an 18-wheeler truck accidentally ran him over. What is terribly important about this tragic story is that the victim, who suffered a painful and horrible death for his foolish stunt, was supposedly a normal teenager. Some of his friends had actually joined him in this crazy act, apparently thought they were being thrill seekers. The Proverbs of Solomon. A wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son grief to his mother. Proverbs 10:1. Sometimes what amounts to real courage is not going along with the group. A genuine leader cares about his or her friends. Leaders should encourage others to make positive choices. Often this means going against peer pressure, which can appear to be a powerful force to go up against. Going along with something, particularly when we know it's wrong, is always an act of weakness and stupidity. True challenges in life are found in standing up for what we know is right. On the Alcyon, I am so safety conscious that the other divers often refer to me as La Mère Poulet, the mother hen. It is a title I wear with pride and great satisfaction. The task of the leader is to get his people from where they are to where they have not been. Henry Kissinger.